Speaking of the Empire, perhaps it's not falling off for TFC with the first win of the season. And in fairness, the last, 4 games, 3 clean sheets. When you see a team slowly turn it around, usually it comes through defensive football first. Should TFC fans be optimistic, excited, hopeful, or wary of the recent uptick in performances?
I would suggest they should be cautiously optimistic. I think there's, when you think about it, they conceded 12 goals through the first 5 games. And, there was just, I think, defensively all over the place. I think when you look at the last 4 games, a lot more solid. I mean, you look at sort of the way that they've defended, just their shape. They've been able to sort of maintain a defensive solidity. There's this bend but don't break quality. And I think, he doesn't get enough credit, but I think Debbie Flores has really kind of stepped up and really sort of helped them, protect that back line. And I was reading a stat like yesterday, and just looking at the number of interceptions and recoveries and duels that he's won, it's quite impressive. So I think he's played a big part. But yeah, I think there's reason to be cautiously optimistic. I mean, when you look at the 9 games that they've played, they haven't been blown out. They've been competitive in all of those 9 games. So the fact that they were able to put together this nice little run of matches where they've, 3 shutouts and 3 shutouts against Vancouver, Minnesota, and they limited Inter Miami to 1 goal. Those are 3 of the best teams that they were able to take points off of. So I think that's encouraging. So I think there's, as I said, there's reason to be optimistic. What I would be concerned about is still the attack. They're still not as dangerous or productive as they should be. I mean, Lorenzo Insigne still hasn't scored. They just seem to be labor when they get to that final action, whether it's, making the killer pass or the right decision. They've got to really, so they're kind of walking a tightrope here in terms of, being in really tight competitive games. You'd like to see them open things up and win it a little bit more comfortably and, grab a 2-0 lead. It should be said too. I mean, the game in Salt Lake, that was only the 3rd time that they've enjoyed a lead this season. So they've mostly been playing from either behind or at an equal advantage. So I think that's something that they have to sort of address going forward as well.
Okay, so yeah, attack's a problem. We get that, but what is Robin Fraser's thoughts right now? Is he speaking as if he's a manager that's kind of beginning to figure it out, or is he still being cautiously optimistic?
I don't know. I think it's more. I don't know that he's trying to figure it out. I think it's more about just letting the process play out, and it just needing a bit more time. I mean, you have to remember that he was only hired in January, so he didn't have a great deal of time to work with these players. He had 1 sort of preseason, but even then, it couldn't have been easy for him coming into a new situation with players he largely didn't know. I mean, he knew a few. Obviously, he worked with Osorio during his time here, but so I think it's just a matter of time of him sort of continuing to hammer home what he wants done and let the process playing out. I think, I think we've seen progress from the team. When you look at those first 5 games when they were leaking goals, they are unquestionably look far more solid over the last 4 games. And they've done it with, a staggering amount of defensive injuries, whether it's Henry Wingo or Nixon Gomes, who've been out injured, Zane Monlouis. Someone like Sigurd Rosted, who has, come in for a lot of criticism since his time in Toronto, has really kind of stepped up. And I think has begun to live up to his hefty contract, and the same for Raul Petretta. So I think, Robin is, feeling good about things are right now. He's obviously not entirely pleased, but I think he's pleased that it's headed in the right direction and that his vision of what he wants the club to be is, it's slowly inching towards that in that direction.
JMO, do you think it's just a matter of time before they find their fluency and kind of their footing and express themselves the way that Robin Fraser wants them to, in terms of the attack? Because foundational piece guys like a Sean Johnson, talk about a more organized defense, but the pillar back there is Sean Johnson performing the way I think they expect him to perform. That's been a big part of this tide turning, right? And seeing positivity. So if you're not going to outscore the mistakes, you're mitigating the mistakes, and you've got a goalkeeper who's saving like expected goals over the past 4 games where they got the 3 draws and now the win. So you can rely on that. That does give the offense a little bit of confidence, doesn't it? That you know that your goalkeeper will make those saves, even if you're unable to really score at every turn.
I would think so, Amy. And I should have mentioned Sean Johnson. I mean, I think this has been sort of the best stretch from him that we've seen since he's been in the TFC sort of jersey. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. I mean, when you look at the last couple of games, especially against Salt Lake, he was, absolutely brilliant, made some crucial saves. I do think, there's a lot of truth to what you said, Amy, because it sort of gives, the forwards a little bit of a leeway, knowing that, Sean and the defense can kind of keep them in a tight game. Will they find their fluidity eventually? I'm not sure. I still think this team needs another sort of attacking piece up front, like another forward, someone who can complement Ola Briljansen. I just think there's a lack of depth at the number 9 position, and that they could really be better suited to going out and fill that spot, especially with DeAndre Kerr, who it looks like he's going to be out for the foreseeable future with an ankle injury. And, Ola has been suffering through fitness and, injury issues since he got here. Obviously came off the bench on Saturday. So I do think, at some point, does the attack become more fluid and more decisive? Possibly. But I still believe that, this sort of attack could use an attacking reinforcement in the form of another striker.
Theo Corbinu,
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah. You go ahead. I was going to ask about Corbinu.
You're going to ask probably a much more eloquent question, though, than me. So.
No, likely not. You go on.
Probably were. Okay. Well, let's both give our question, and then Jimmy can decide. Theo Corbinu looked good.
Corbinu, good. Rest of attacking core, bad. JMO, speak to that.
Yeah. No, listen, I thought he was, absolutely brilliant. I mean, when you look at that goal, that's all him. I mean, it was an absolutely brilliant. I mean, he was the one who closed down, sort of saw that Hidalgo was getting that back pass, and they immediately went to him, closed him down, dispossessed him, sidestepped the other defender, I think Justin Glad, took a couple touches, and then, a brilliant finish. And it was all sort of one sort of, sweeping motion action. And, good for Theo, because it was a bit of a, he started the first 2 games of the season and then kind of fell out of the roster, and he was kind of struggling for playing time. But the last 2-3 weeks, I think he's really stepped up in a big way. I think back to that, I believe it was the Inter Miami game where he hit the post twice. And he just seems to be finding his attacking feet now. And I think, he was duly rewarded with his first MLS goal against Salt Lake. So, I think this was, exactly the type of performance he needed. And this was exactly the type of performance that TFC needed, because Salt Lake is not an easy place to play, irrespective of, the team's uneven form this year. You're playing at altitude. They only won there one time before. Jimmy might remember during the original 2007 season. So, it's where, hopes go to die if you're a TFC, fan. So the fact that they were able to get a result there, and Corbiano was at the center of it, I think that really bodes well for the team going forward. Hopefully it gives them a bit more confidence, and he can, build upon what I thought was really a splendid performance.
I thought it was an all right performance, John. Yeah. When I look at it, I thought it was a great time for them to score, 9 minutes in the match, which gives you a little spring in your step. But as the game went on, I think Salt Lake kind of dictated the play as well. They had 23 shots, 5 on target. TFC only had two shots, right? 1 on target. And it shows you that they were defending an awful lot throughout that match. And let's not forget, Diego Luna got sent off in the 60th minute as well. And when you're watching that match, it looked like TFC had the man down.
Yeah.
Now, Robin Fraser, for me, would look at that game thinking, I don't think he really cared what the performance was like as long as they got 3 points, because you go 8 games without a win. You think, we don't care what we've got to do here, but we need 3 points. We need our first win to give us something to go off of and try to maybe start gaining a little bit more momentum going forward. They've kept the number of clean sheets, which shows you they're trying to solidify that back line and defensively make sure that they're organized. And then you build off of that going forward. So you hope this is going to give them a little bit more life and a little bit more positivity throughout the team. And eventually, think, and I'm hoping you start becoming a little bit more creative going forward. Now, when you do become creative going forward, you do create risk at the back because you open up a little bit more, don't you?
Sure, absolutely.
I thought they defended very, very well and in numbers, and they were under the caution a lot in that match.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, this wasn't sort of like champagne football. This wasn't their best performance of the season, and it was, and as Robin admitted after the game, this wasn't pretty. But again, I don't necessarily think it was about the performance as much as it was about the result, right? And sometimes, you've got to grind it out and win ugly and sort of win in these types of gritty games. And how many times have we seen TFC come out on the losing end of close games like this where it's really tight and they have to grind things out? The fact that they were able to come out on top, on the road no less, in a place where, again, they haven't historically had a great deal of success, still managed to win despite not playing their best football, I think that's a positive. So, as you said, hopefully they can sort of build upon this going forward.
You asked Jimmy if he probably remembers when they beat Real Salt Lake in the inaugural season. Jimmy nodded yep. Well, let's find out whether Jimmy remembered it or not. I've got the match.
I know we won.
Yeah, you did. 2-1. Do you remember who scored?
Who?
What's that?
Dicchio? No.
No. Deets got an assist in the first goal, though. Against as a guy that was so confident that he'd score a certain number of goals, he put it on his back. Remember this American international striker.
I know.
James got his hand up.
If I remember correctly, Jeff Cunningham was one of the
Yes. Yes. Maybe he won.
Well done,
He was one away from 100, I think, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Joined.
I believe so. Yeah. I think he was at like 98 or something like that. Yeah, I couldn't remember for the life of me who scored the other goal, but I remember Jeff.
Okay, I'll give you a clue. So this guy, is one of those people you can't trust because he has two first names as his name.
I thought you were going to go somewhere really dark.
No.
Two first names.
Yeah, if your surname is a first name as well, then you can't.
Like Steve David or.
What's his name? Colin Samuel.
Yes.
Oh
Colin Samuel.
We used to call him Paca.
Why's that?
Paca was his nickname. So we're on the bus one day and we're having a conversation, and Paca, he was such a good guy. He was from Trinidad, right? Hilarious individual. So I'm sitting there with Deets and I think Robbo and a few others. We're just bantering back and forth. And I look at Deets and I was like, come on, let's wind him up. Let's wind Colin Samuel up. And I went, hey, Deets, I said, remember that goalkeeper from Trinidad? He was brilliant. Played at West Ham. What was his name? Paca. He goes, Hislop. I went, Paca Hislop. That's it. Colin Samuel turns around and goes, who the fuck is Paca, man? It's Shaka. So we ended up calling him Paca
because of that. And that's how nicknames are born. I love that. Paca Samuel.
Yeah. That was stupid.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
And brilliant.
But we laughed just how wound up he got.
Sure.
Just for old time's sake, let's go through the 11, shall we? Always fun to see those TFC early years. We got a certain Jimmy Brennan, obviously, Jeff Cunningham, who was subbed off for Andy Walsh, Deets, Dan Dicchio, Todd Donovan, Moadu, Tyrone Marshall, Ronnie O'Brien, Chris Pozniak, Sam Reynolds. I don't remember a goalkeeper, right? Sam Reynolds. I don't remember him at all. Robbo, and here and Colin Samuel. It actually wasn't that bad a team on paper. Actually, there's some decent players there.
Yeah.
Why the hell?
Sam Reynolds, he was the nicest man I think I've ever met in my life. I remember one game, I think he broke his leg and he came in and apologized to everybody. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. I feel like I let you down. We're like, you just broke your leg, you plum.
Well, was he? I'm trying to think. I can't even picture him. Can you, JMO? Do you remember Sam Reynolds?
Vaguely. Very long time ago.
Yeah. Ronnie O'Brien was in there. I'm not sure if I mentioned Ronnie O'Brien.
Yeah.
Just too many injuries, right, for Ronnie, wasn't it, in that first year? Decent player.
He was one of the best golfers I've ever seen in my life. He used to come to training with his golf shoes on.
May have been the issue.
Old golf kit, ready to go. As soon as training was done, he was on the course.
So he was focused. He was focused on the job at hand then.
Yeah. And then I think he moved back to Dallas after and became a golf pro.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What a life.
Oh, he was right into it. Loved it.
That's great. Okay, this segment, this is Lorenzo Insigne update brought to you by Fiat.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think some Italian brand here we could sell. We have to go there, right? He's playing games.
Yep.
JMO. With the first, I didn't see this weekend's game, just saw the highlights, going to be honest with you. First 2 or 3 games he started this season, probably more than that now. Not great. Not appalling, but the work ethic was questioned. How was he this weekend?
Put in a solid, I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily what people want to hear, but put in a solid defensive shift. Was really sort of committed to sort of being the first line of attack or defense up front. Still, that's not what you're paying him to do, but you want to see something more out of him from the attacking end. But I think he's clearly kind of bought into Robin's sort of vision of, everyone defending as one and really buying into this sort of defense of mentality. You can't fault the guy's work rate. And through this entire thing, he's been really professional. Like, I've seen him at practice, and he's working hard, and he's not, he's sort of bantering with the players. The players are bantering with him. He's, putting in a solid shift during training. He's putting in solid shifts during games. So you can't really fault his effort or his sort of professionalism during all of this. So, Robin has clearly, put him back in the lineup, and is going to continue to give him games. The MLS primary transfer window closes on Wednesday, so they have until then to get something done, which, everything I'm led to believe isn't going to happen. So he's going to be here until at least the summer. So, I think Robin will continue to sort of play him because he likes what he's seen from him so far, albeit he hasn't scored yet, although he does have 2 assists.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Insigne now. Obviously, he needs to leave at some point, and that they'll try and get that done. But he's only doing the job he's being paid to do, right? He got the contract. He's playing football. Okay, he's not playing particularly well. Perhaps the decline was steeper than the club anticipated. Maybe that's what it is. Simple as that. So I'm not suggesting we have any sympathy. Mm-hmm. He seems to have shackled this club, but at the same time, at least he's playing football now. I mean, when he was just not playing, it just a bad look optically.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I should mention too is, like, during his time here, he's been sort of dogged by injury and fitness issues. He's been pretty durable so far. I mean, I think the first 3 games that he played the full 90 minutes. I don't recall him ever playing the full 90 minutes 3 games in a row for Toronto. And the last 2 games he's been subbed off, but I think in the first one it was like 80th minute he came out, and then on the weekend it was like about 73 or 74. So, they're getting minutes out of him. He's proving to be someone who can actually play and last, and play on consecutive weeks. So just compare that to his earlier sort of days with TFC. I think that's a positive as well.
But that's through 5 matches. Are we grasping at straws here a little bit?
Well, a little bit, yeah. But I mean, when you're
he's playing football minutes.
He's playing 90 minutes.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to sort of put it in context, right?
Yeah.
Because in terms of when he first got here, obviously playing 90 minutes was, and even during his time at Napoli, he'd never really played 90 minutes. He wasn't an incredibly durable player. So the fact that they were able to get 3 consecutive 90-minute performances of a guy who, fitness has been an issue. His durability has been an issue. Take that as a positive. I know it's a silver lining. You really want to see it, but it is there.
Maybe that's the plan and the hope. They're going to play the hell out of him. Hope he tears something. Grab some insurance money or something, or get some cap relief. I don't know.
No. You know what? I think, he's got a lot of sort of criticism, and rightly so, for this contract. But I think at the end of the day, he's a proud guy, and he wants to sort of, be out there and perform. I don't think he enjoys, contrary to what a lot of people believe, just enjoyed being benched for those 4 games and collecting a paycheck. He's a player. He wants to sort of play as, and be competitive and be out there on the pitch. So, and again, you can't, having just witnessed him in training and on the in the club's training facility, you cannot question his sort of professionalism and the commitment that he's shown so far. So
good for him for training. I'm happy for him.
So, JMO, let me ask you something. So, not being super well versed in Robin Fraser's philosophy of play, what would be the hallmarks of play of a fluent offense under Fraser and with TFC? Do they have the pieces to do it? You would hope that they would in the aforementioned Insigne and Bernadeschi. I know they're missing Kerr up top.
Yes.
But is it just, my previous question alluded to it, but is it just a matter of time before we see that being unlocked?
Yeah, that's sort of the $1 million question. Again, I do, not to repeat myself, I do think they need to bring in another piece and just because I don't necessarily think they have the depth or, up top. What does an ideal sort of attacking sort of team look like under Robin's sort of vision? I think it's a lot about, not unlike what it was under Greg Vanney. I think it's a lot about deliberate possession and build-up play and, slowly sort of breaking teams down and getting to the other side and, being quick with touches. I think one of the things that Robin touches on, much like Greg Vanney did, is that players have to be economical with their touches, because when you take an extra touch, then you're robbing the next guy who could be your real danger man of, time on the ball. So I think he just wants, players to be quick on the ball, move it along, progress the ball as quickly as possible, and just, get upfield in a very sort of efficient sort of manner and, just be decisive when you've got sort of that clear sort of shot on goal or that clear opportunity to take it and not look for the extra pass or the extra touch. And so I think it's just it's mostly about being quick on touch, sort of being economical with your touches and just being really sort of efficient in moving the ball forward as quickly as possible.
Charms.
I'm back now. Am I back? my internet cut out. Am I back now?
Oh, yeah, it did.
Yeah, everything went black. My whole screen went black. Yeah.
Oh, you came back. But I was just going to update. That was Footy Prime's Insigne update with John Molinaro, brought to you by Plum Tomatoes, when cherries just don't work.
Hey, don't badmouth Plum Tomatoes. They're good.
Oh, I love the Plum Tomatoes. What's going on with Sharman?
Is away now.
I think it's having internet issues. What's the JMO? I did want to ask. I do follow TFC lives, like how often they're hit on Twitter and all of that kind of stuff. Have you seen? I've been watching a lot of social media, and the TFC live fandom and supporters are not the happiest of folks.
Right.
Will this quell them? I know you used the term optimistic a little bit, cautiously optimistic, I think is the term used. Will this quell them a little bit, at least to give the benefit of the doubt to Robin Fraser? Because some of the signs over top of the bridge where they're like MLSC,
right.
This is, all of that kind of stuff, which is, this has always been a very well-supported club. Right. And they've gone through a lot of losing seasons.
Right.
But this one seems like a little tipping point a bit.
I think you're right, Dan. I think to answer your question, will this, how much goodwill will this sort of victory earn? I don't think a terrible amount. I think, there's a lot, distrust isn't the right word. I think there's still a lot of frustration, right? Just because, the fans just have been sort of waiting for this team to get going for so long now that there's a great deal of frustration, and rightly so. So, the proof is on the results on the pitch. So if they can, get another win against New York on Saturday, if they can beat Montreal in the Canadian Championship and advance to the next round, if they can begin May is going to be a crucial month for them because they have 7 games, 6 of which are at home. With the one road game is in Montreal. If they can sort of, show some improvement then, during next month and, start piling up some points and climb up the ladder a bit, then I think you get the fans entirely back on side. But until then, I think there's still going to be a little bit of leeriness, a little bit of, well, let's wait and see this to see how this pans out. You can't I wouldn't expect fans to sort of like be in a complete love fest again after one result. It's going to take, a little bit more time.
Well, if you need an opponent, where you can earn that goodwill and you can gain that confidence, it might be Montreal at this point.
Well,
because
I was going to ask, Amy, what's going on there? Like, that's crazy, you guys.
Yes, a little bit better. I think, it's still just a draw in their second match back at home, finally getting past that 7-match stretch to open up the season, which they're always up against, but it just seemed interminable this year, that time away. I think they've looked better under Donadell and better since Joel Waterman has come off of that right wing or like the right fullback position and back into the heart of that defense. I think that's better, but they still can't really seem to get going offensively, a little bit like TFC, but still without a win. So the Montreal Roses, in their inaugural match for NSL and for this new franchise, have a win before CF Montreal do. I was going to mention that on the call on Saturday, and I thought, no, I'm not going to be that asshole.
You were too busy talking about, fisted and that kind of stuff.
Yes, right. I said fisted instead of punched. I was like, oh my dear God. But I was going to ask you, Jamo, any news about Richie and his health and his fitness?
Yeah, so just that, he continues to be like, he's not even training. And so I think when we talked to Robin Fraser, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he said he was about another month to 6 weeks out. Wow. So I suspect that it's going to be, so that's going to take us to mid to late sort of May. And you got to think that he's not going to go, directly back into playing right after, after such a long time ago. It might take a week or two. So we might not really see him firmly back into the lineup, the starting 11, until June. So it's going to take some time. I mean, he flew to the UK to see sort of a specialist to look at, just to get at the bottom of his injury issues. And he doesn't have to do any sort of surgery or have it be operated on. It's just a matter of going through, a certain type level of rehabilitation process. So he's in the middle of that. So it's unfortunately just going to take some time. It's unfortunate because he's, such a great guy, and he just seems to have been really bitten by injury bug since he got here, since he returned. Like, he hasn't really had, a clean bill of health, like totally, for long stretches of time. So now he's out for another little bit. It's just, it's just an unfortunate situation.
Remind me again, Jamo, hamstring. Was that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's the same hamstring on the same leg that he suffered last year. So it's, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer for some injuries to overcome and to fully heal.
Well, speaking of foundational pieces, right? So Sean Johnson is one and Oso's another, and you can throw the Italians in there if you're feeling generous and you're full of that goodwill. I think that they should be granted occasionally, at least when they're proving to be durable or showing the effort. I mean, if they can put the pieces together and start to get results here and put together comprehensive performances, and then you can add in a guy like Richie Larea after the fact, then all of a sudden this squad is looking, I think, promising. Is that fair to say?
Possibly, yeah. It'd be almost like a new signing, almost, in a lot of ways, with Richie to come back. Because again, he hasn't sort of had a consistent run of games since he's come back. He's really been sort of injury bitten. So that'd be almost like a new signing, almost, when he goes back.
I think it's promising, but with Lorenzo setting the standard by training, I think is in great shape.
That's where the bar is. Training, check.
You're never going to let me line it down, eh, James?
No, never.
Okay.
Sorry, Jamo. What's in the slate this week, Jamo? TFC Republic.
Looking ahead to the game against New York City FC. Have a feature story on Sigurd Rosted coming up later this week, who I think has been probably TFC's most improved player. And then a special quarterly report, because essentially we're a quarter of the way through the season.
I guess so.
Yeah, 9 games out of 34, a little bit more than a quarter of the way. So I'm just doing kind of like a comprehensive review of, the first sort of 25% of the season, where things stand with TFC, and then where things are headed for the next quarter of the campaign.
Well, listen, 5 points out of the playoffs. It isn't actually that far off.
Nope.
MLS is a weird old league, right? The summer months are everything.
Like close to Montreal. Sorry, Amy.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not
absolutely fair.
Not just that TFC fans are chanting, and they should be chanting. And it's a 2:30 kickoff, I think, this weekend, BMO. So the afternoon kickoff, and the weather seems to be warmish. Oh, way better. Yeah, I love the afternoon kickoffs.
Like Vancouver weather. I think it's going to be cool,
miserable and gray.
Miserable and gray, rainy.
Jamo, thanks, pal. Always a pleasure.
No worries.
And we'll get back on, obviously, very, very soon.
Cheers.
That is
J-Mo.
John Molinaro of TFCRepublic.ca. A little, we'll get to some Vancouver later in the week, obviously, because